Yeah, I've been on the road to riches, hitting every bump on every avenue. Hit the ceiling glass and I've been crashing through. Coach Ray put me onto the plays. Every episode play got me ready for the game. Coach Ray speaks. 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 Coach Ray speaks.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to Impactful Solutions Academy Studios and the Coach Ray Speaks podcast. With us today is a fellow podcaster, and there's a reason I wanted to have him on the show. First of all, he's a fellow coach. All right, he coaches baseball. I coach football, so there's a kindred spirit right there. But his show is about success, and it's not just success on a baseball field, it's success in life. So we're going to talk about that. And I've got a kindred spirit with him. His podcast is named Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Wes Tankersley. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. How about you?
I'm well, and I thank you for being here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think it's going to be a good conversation,
I can't wait. So let me ask you something. First question I have, and I'm going to actually throw this on the ticker. So how do you know you've achieved success?
How do you know you achieve success? That is a tough question, but you know what? I ask people that every single episode. And, I think that success is something that is defined by each individual. So I think really that answer is, personal. For me, it's a whole different story. I want to help other people out. I want to help people achieve their success as well. And so for me, that's what it is. It's, have I helped and impacted other people to be successful? I mean, that's really what it is. And that's what my show's about, right? My show's about proving to other people because, when I was growing up, this is kind of the story that I go back to every single time. And it's kind of funny because I was sitting in my accountant's office the other day talking to him, and his cousin is the one who said this to me. And this is where it all kind of stemmed to me. He looked at me and he said, you know what? When I graduate or in 20 years, I'm going to be twice as successful as you. And in my mind, over and over again, I thought, what the heck does that mean? How can you tell me that you're going to be twice as successful for me when success is different for me than it is for you? Right. So that's really what it is. Like for me, it's helping other people to be successful. I don't know what his thoughts were, but it did change my life. It made me really think about what success was.
And when I was really preparing for this interview, and that question came across as I listened to some of your stuff, some of your podcasts, and the different people and how they've answered similar questions to that. And I've thought about, say, the kids I've coached and then the people I've helped through business. You can't measure success. Is difficult to measure in any way, shape, or form, right? So for someone to say they're more successful than you are, well, my success could be simply, I'm here for the day. I woke up in the morning. Someone else's success could be, well, they're able to achieve a certain goal, right? So let me ask you this. And of course, there it is. What is a winning mindset?
Mindset for me was something that it's always been in my head. It's like controlling the things that you can control. And I struggle with it every day. I had a great conversation with a friend of mine this morning. We were sitting down, we were having coffee, and we're talking about it. It's like, how can you help me? And I think that the biggest thing that you struggle with is the fact that mindset is something that everyone has that they do struggle with. They can't figure it out. They worry about what other people are saying. They worry about, if they're doing what they need to do. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that you can control what you can control and letting the other stuff go. We can sit here and we can talk about how people say, well, it's the biggest way that I can explain it is hater math. You think about this. And I had a friend who posted this on TikTok, and hater math to me is so stupid. It's the dumbest thing that we deal with. But if we weighed the comments that we got, like on social media, positive versus negative. Okay. and I got one negative comment and I got 100 positive comments, which one do I spend the most time on? And that just doesn't make sense to me. And we do that every single day. We spend more time on that negative comment, stewing over what someone said negative to us when we have all these 100 positive comments that we talk about. And that's the tough part. I mean, I think that that's what the mindset is. I think, for a long time and for like the last 2 years, I've got this mindset, that the switch that I made, and it's hard because I don't know if you've read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, but that's really that book right there is the one that just turned the page for me. You sit there and you think that what you're told throughout your life is that you have to get a job, go to college, do everything that everyone tells you to do, work for someone, get a retirement, and make all that money. And then when you're done, you just hang out, collect your social security, and you're done, right? That's what you're supposed to do. And I don't believe that. I think that winning mindset is something that you're never complacent with what you're doing. But then you also have to understand that negative comment or those negative things that happen are part of life. And you have to realize that everything that you do that's negative, you can turn that into a learning experience and use that for something positive. And I think, I always say that I never regret any decisions that I made in the past. And I honestly can say that because they have molded me into what I am, and they have helped me become who I am. And I had this mindset where everything, I was always that guy, the glass is half empty, the glass is half empty. And then whatever happens, if it's good or bad, I won't be disappointed. And the thought process has come to the point where every single day you have to be thinking positive no matter what. And negative things will happen, but the way that you deal with those negative things really is the mindset. If you allow them to creep in and destroy you, then you're just going to be a destroyed person. You've got to be willing to take the good with the bad and continue to move forward.
Let's take that to, you coach baseball. Was it high school baseball, college baseball?
Yeah, so it was high school baseball. I coached high school baseball. I did coach high school football too, a little bit, but it's funny because I was a very good football player, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did baseball. So that's why I went to coaching baseball.
Gotcha. So, I've coached football. I coached football for about almost 30 years, high school, college. The development of a mindset is different for every person that you encounter. You have some kids that are on the bench that feel that they're not going to get off the bench, and they make one play for that year and they're successful. Then you have those athletes that are Division I, Division II athletes that, listen, if I fumble, although I may have 100 yards for the day, I suck. I'm done for the day. My mindset is blown. As a coach, and then I'm going to actually extend this a little further, but as a coach, how do you relate for developing a mindset to your players?
The biggest thing for me, and when I coached, and it's funny, I love the fact that I have people commenting on social media because I'll post things on there, and then I'll have kids that I coached reiterate what I said to them. And it's funny because I think the biggest thing that you do is you take care of all the small things. And if you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. Now, you talked about someone fumbling a football and it'd be the end of their day. The fact of the matter is you look at that. If Tom Brady had that mindset, I threw an interception, he wouldn't have won seven Super Bowls, right? And that's the thing. You take care of those little things every single day. And those little things, the kids it would drive them crazy because I would take in baseball, as a high school coach, you were in charge of taking care of the field, making sure that it looked pristine, making sure that it looked perfect. And it drove them nuts. But when they walked out and that field was mowed and that mound was in perfect condition and the field looked great, they felt great. When they had on nice looking uniforms, when they had their shirts tucked in, when they had their belts, strapped on, when they looked neat and clean, they performed better. They felt better about themselves. And that's where it started. It's you take care of those tiny little things and the big things will take care of themselves. And so running out every ball, no matter what it be, you don't know what's going to happen between if you had a bunt and it was right in the place where the pitcher could get to it, he could overthrow that first baseman. You could be standing on second base. But if you just look at that ball and go, it was a terrible bunt, it was a terrible little base hit, it didn't matter, it wasn't a base hit, you got to do it no matter what. And that was the funny thing. I taught them no matter what, take care of those little things and the big things will take care of themselves.
I'm so glad you said that. So now let's extend that to what an entrepreneur should or shouldn't do. You just mentioned it's the small things, it's the little things that need to be done on an everyday basis that will determine your success. Talk about that for me.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm kind of like I'm a side hustle entrepreneur, right? Because I do have a day job that has to pay the bills right now, and I'm continuing to work on that every single day to make it so that that's something that I can do. You know, and the funny thing, like podcasting is kind of my passion. I really enjoy talking to these people, talking to people about how they do what they do because it gives me information and then it helps spread the word with other people. And so the funny thing about it is you have to be willing to be consistent. You have to be willing to do those things every single day. And I think like with podcasting, if you look at it, the average podcast lasts about 7 episodes. That's it, because people give up and they're not willing to continue because there's like, I didn't get the numbers that I'm looking for. I didn't get, I didn't move people like I wanted to. There's all these reasons why you can't do it. I don't have time. I don't have this. I don't have that. And there's plenty of reasons for that. When I started my podcast, I was in my garage, probably about 15 feet away from here, with an iPad, with an iPhone, with whoever my guest was iPhone, and we were just streaming it everywhere. And it wasn't that great. You can go listen to the first 5 episodes of what I posted because I'm not taking them down because I want to have a reminder and I want people to know where it started. And that's exactly the thing. It's one of those deals. You have to be willing to fail, but you have to be consistent in whatever you're doing, fail or not. I have episodes that have like 15 downloads. Did I stop? No, I continue to do it. Numbers are down a little bit right now, but I'm not quitting. I'm going to find what I need to do and I'm going to re-engineer that and continue to take care of the little things because at some point it's just going to blow up.
There you go. Let's talk about failure. You should mention that. Is that part of a winning mindset, knowing how to deal with failure?
100%. If you can't fail and move on and continue to go, then you're never going to be it's a negative thing, right? Or you can make it a negative thing. You can say that it's a negative thing. Well, I failed, right? I'm a commission salesman during the day, and I walk into houses. And when I first started doing that, because I went from education, I was a PE teacher and a coach, into a commission sales job that was 100% commission. Now, I was a salesman before I was a teacher, but I wasn't one where my livelihood depended on it. And when you walk in a house and someone doesn't say, "Hey, I'm going to give you my money right now," it can be detrimental to that mindset because you feel like you fail. And I started out that way. And that's kind of where the switch came, was the fact of the matter was like, just because I didn't make that sale didn't mean that it was a failure, but what could I do the next time when I walked into the next house and create that success every single time? And I realized that there are going to be failures, but if I could deal with those in a healthy way, instead of just beating myself up because it wasn't a sale or wasn't successful, that was the big thing.
I was listening to one of your podcasts, and there was a gentleman, I believe he was a baseball player, that had mentioned that some of the most hated players were the most successful players. Yeah. So does being successful meaning that you're not going to be well liked, or you've got to have that focus so that you're not talking to anybody or anybody else?
Yeah, that was one of my latest episodes, but I've talked to Zach before about that, and that's the thing. You may be hated. There's nothing you can do about that. But the problem is that the reason why most people hate you, and you think about it like Barry Bonds, right? People didn't like him, but he was highly successful. The reason why he was successful was because he was laser focused. And people didn't like that. They wanted him to be more personable. But if he was more personable, would he hit as many home runs as he did? Would he have been as successful in baseball as he was? And that's the thing. That conversation with Zach was a great one to me, because as a fan sitting there thinking about people playing baseball, watching, I'm a Giants fan. I was born kind of in the Bay Area, and I live in Idaho now, but I've never, and as a matter of fact, you don't see my Giants jerseys hanging in the background here because we're putting our house on the market. And so we have to take them down so that people don't think that, but the fact of the matter is that he had to be that way. And he talked about how Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds never got along. They hated each other, but they had to be that way, because if they didn't, they lost their focus. They lost their ability to play the game. and it's a business, right? Professional baseball, professional football, NBA, people don't really look at it as a business. You are playing a game for a living, right? That's what they think. But from high school, when kids love the game and they're playing because it's just something they want to do for fun, when they get really good, they have to realize that they're not going to get paid to play that game if they're not good, if they don't focus, if they don't be, you know, a jerk, if they have to be. But letting other people bring you down off that level could be detrimental to your career.
So let's take that to high school for a moment, because on a high school team, you're more social. You're told that you should be social with your teammates. But being social doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be good.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. It just means that, you get along with everybody. Mm-hmm. So would you recommend that on a high school level or lower level, or is that more towards college and the professional ranks, to be laser focused, or that laser focus that you're going to ignore basically everyone else around you?
It's kind of weird because I think that you have to be that way, but on the same token, developmentally, just like with physical education, because it's the same thing. As a PE teacher, you teach an elementary school kid differently than you would a high school kid or a middle school kid, because when they're learning their motor skills and they're trying to figure that thing out, they need to be able to interact with people. They need to be able to be part of the team, right? And so you're teaching them social skills, and so it's just a little different, I think, in high school. When you get into the college, the kids that are more focused, though, right, in high school are the kids that go to college, right? And the kids that are more focused in college are the kids that go to play pro level. And so I think that a lot of that, those kids kind of weed themselves out. But on the same token, I think that it's necessary to be a team member, to be a team player. Does that mean that you can't be focused on what you're doing? No, it doesn't. But you have to be willing, like if you want to go on the next level, you're going to have to figure that out. And that's kind of the thing that I try to teach kids. It's like, yes, you can be sitting in here kind of goofing around, but on the same token, you need to have your head in the game. You need to be watching what's going on, because you never really know, the first baseman could get hurt and the second string guy could have to go in, but he doesn't know what's going on in the game. He's just hanging out. And so you really have to be prepared to be able to go in there. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I learned from high school, because I was a second string baseball player. I went from starting on the varsity my sophomore year in high school to being my senior year making the varsity team on baseball. That was it. I didn't make it the other 3 years, but I continued to play it. Now, I can tell you right now, I always looked at the guy who was playing over me and I was mad because what did he do? What did I do? And I was always trying to be better than him to take his position, and I think that most kids think that way. It's like, I'm better than him. The problem is that parents will sit there and say, well, you're better than him too. And then they'll come after the coach. In a high school situation, it's kind of a little more annoying.
Relate that now to an entrepreneur and having to be laser focused to be successful.
Well, again, it's like we talked about. It's like even with anything that you do, if you're not laser focused, if you don't know the goals in front of you, you're not going to be able to succeed in that. If you have this big willy-nilly idea of what success is or what you're doing, like I have a ton of ideas, but I have no focus in what I'm doing, then you're never going to be successful. I mean, I could sit here and tell you, I want to be, I don't know, I want to be a podcaster. I want to be a cryptocurrency guy. I want to be this. I want to be that. And you can have like 20 different things, but no focus on it. Are you going to be successful at any of those? It's possible, but the chances of you trying to figure out what you're doing as an entrepreneur and honing in on one thing, the other things will happen because you're taking care of that one specific thing.
Across the bottom of the screen, I've listed top 5 ways to be successful according to the internet. So I'd like your comments on this. First is to develop concrete goals. Second, to be different, excuse me, but know your needs and your wants. Third is to believe in yourself. Fourth is to have balance. And fifth is overcoming fear. Let's talk about that. First one, concrete goals.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of talked about that a little bit before, but you have to know exactly what you're doing, and I I know what I'm doing, right? I'm writing things down, and I'm kind of like I'm more of a thinker than a writer, and that's kind of the biggest thing for me is like knowing exactly what I want to do. And I write down, like, especially with my podcast, right? Okay. So I don't have great numbers right now. I mean, they're decent compared to other people, like wanting to be like a top 10 podcast, right? Or want to be number one in podcasting. And so I look at my numbers on a daily basis. And this year I set goals because I've done 87 episodes, right? And I just started in season 2, and I decided that the seasons are going to go from year to year. And that's just what it is. However many episodes I do in a year, I'm going to do that as the seasons. And so one of my goals this year was to hit 10,000 downloads. I've hit 5, and I know that 10 is attainable, and I actually probably should set a little bit higher than that. But to know where that's going, I want to have 10,000 episodes. I want to try and interview 100 people this year, which is a very attainable goal. But to have those goals and then set them as a SMART goal. I don't know if you've ever heard of SMART goal, but it's specific.
Absolutely.
Yep. So specific, measurable, attainable, time-based, and measurable.
Measurable.
Right?
No. Specific, measurable, attainable.
Time-based.
I
know
yeah,
what they
are. I forgot.
I know exactly what they are. They're realistic.
Realistic. There you go.
Yep, realistic and time-based.
Realistic and time-based. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so that's really how I try to look at things, because if I just say, hey, I'm going to have the number one podcast, there's not really any way of getting there. Like when, how, what defines that? And so you really got to be specific and just define what that goal is and understand that you're not going to be able to do that just by saying, oh, like a big thing right now, like with kids, when I was teaching, in high school, was like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. And it's like, okay, cool. You're going to be a YouTuber, but what does that look like for you? You're just going to get on, you're going to start posting videos. Do you have a goal with how many downloads you're going to get? How many people are going to watch it? What you're going to do? Or are you just going to be a YouTuber? And that's the thing. It's like, we can sit here and say, we're going to do this and that, but if we have no, goal, or we haven't set that, nothing's going to happen. You can't just say it and it's going to happen.
Talk about the difference between a need and a want.
Yeah. So, I struggle with this one sometimes myself as well, because it's like, a need and a want. Like, you need to have the things that you have around you, right? You need to have heat. You need to have food. You need to have a place to live, shelter, right? Those are the things that you need, but you want to have a big house. You want to have, like as much fire as you want to stay warm, right? You want to have the most gourmet meal. And that's the thing. You don't have to have that. I think that like eating is one of those things that is a big one. It's like, I want this, but do I need it? You need to learn to eat for fuel, right? Because that's what it is. It's just a way to get you moving. And so it's funny. I've interviewed a guy a couple times, Mark Simo, who is kind of he's the founder or brander. He's a brander. So like he's created brands like No Fear, Trust Me Vodka, Spy Eyewear. He's created all these brands. And I looked at him this weekend when I was interviewing or talking to him, and I was like, hey man, your hair is getting kind of long and it's time for a haircut, right? And he's like, yeah, I cut my hair once a year. He goes, I wear the same shirt every single day. He's like, I don't need that stuff. I don't need to do that. And he saves time because he doesn't have to wake up in the morning and go through his closet and say, oh, I'm going to put that red shirt on today, or I'm going to put this on today. It's interesting how people can do that. But, do you really need anything other than a shirt, right? It doesn't have to have a fancy logo on it. It doesn't have to be a fancy color. You just need something to cover up your body and stay warm. So,
wow. Okay. Believing in yourself.
That's a big thing, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're never going to accomplish any of your goals. You can sit there and doubt yourself over and over again. And doubt is the worst thing ever. In sports, if the guy thinks he's going to, he's sitting there staring at the pitcher throwing 100 miles an hour and you're going to get struck out, and you doubt that, then it's probably going to happen. You need to go up there with that mentality that I'm going to hit this guy no matter what. I'm going to get on base. I'm going to do whatever it is. And that was the other funny thing about that, is like that self-doubt that, kids are taught that they have to be like the most successful thing in baseball specifically is I'm going to hit a home run. To me, that's a bunch of crap. You can't score from the dugout. So you can go up there and you can swing as hard as you can 3 times and strike out, or you can wait for the best pitch, hit it, doesn't matter where it goes, and you could be standing on first base with an opportunity to score. I would take that over a home run any day or a strikeout.
Balance.
That's a tough one, especially like with an entrepreneur, because balance is one of those things that you have to try and do. Now, I have a 7-year-old daughter. I have a wife. I have bills I have to pay. I have a job that I have to do. And the biggest thing that I'm struggling right now or trying to find is that balance, because you can spend so much time on one thing. I can spend all my time on this, like trying to get on a show, trying to make the best podcast, trying to do all those things. And then I can forget about those other things. And so you have to learn how to balance that. And I think the biggest thing for me is I got to be better with scheduling, figuring out how to schedule that time every single day and be better about that, because you do have to have balance. You can overdo it, and then it'll cause you to make sacrifices that you shouldn't make, and ultimately you could lose a lot of things if you don't find that balance.
And finally, overcoming fear.
It's kind of a funny one. Fear is kind of one of those things that it's tough. When I was a kid in high school, I was the jock. I was not very good in school, but I was a pretty good athlete, and that's what kept me there. Okay. And so the fear things that I had that I don't have now, it's like I'm watching these kids do these things. Like, here I am throwing my heart out on Instagram. That was the first thing that I did. I got on IG Live and I would do like a 5-minute video every single day. That is something that I never would have done. But it was tough. It was one of those things that, like, I feel like people put so much thought into fear and worried about what other people are going to think and what other people will say and what'll happen if I fail. And it doesn't matter if you fail. I think that the biggest thing is overcoming that fear of failure so that you can have success, because failing is not an end game. Failing is, Grant Cardone said, look at failure as a green light. Most people look at it as a red light, right? And that's a big thing for me, is I want to look at failure as a green light. And in my job today, it's the same kind of thing. It's like I walk into the house and I present them with all the information I can. I give them the very best price I can, and they tell me no. So should I quit? No, it's not a red light. It just means that I need to move on to the next one, and I need to re-engineer what I did and push forward and keep going. And I think that that's the hardest part, is having that, being able to put yourself out there, being able to do that no matter what it is. I was watching the guys on the announcements and thinking, those guys are dumb. Those guys are idiots. Like, they're up there in front of the whole school, joking around and talking and embarrassing themselves in front of everyone. Well, the problem was I was afraid to do it myself, because you know what? If I was to go back 22 years ago, I'd have been sitting in that thing and talking, pushing myself out there, honing my craft.
Very interesting. Obviously who Kobe Bryant is and the Mamba mentality. So relate that to being an entrepreneur for me. And why should an entrepreneur have the Mamba mentality in regarding to their business?
I think that's, when I think about the Mamba mentality, I think about how Kobe had that ice running through his veins, and he didn't want anyone to prove that he couldn't do something. And you sit there and you watch that guy. And I wasn't a big Lakers fan. I grew up in the era when Michael Jordan was the guy, right? And then you sit there and every single person since then has been compared to Michael Jordan. But Kobe is, in my opinion, he is the closest thing to Michael Jordan there is. And you look at what he does. He brings people, or he brought people around him and built them up, just like Tom Brady does. But he was willing to work his butt off no matter what. And he wanted other people to be successful and brought them up to a higher level so that he could be successful. And that's what you have to do. You may be an entrepreneur and you may be just on your own, but you have to bring other people up with you, and other people. And I think one of the biggest things is people are always afraid of other people's success overshadowing their success, right? So I could sit here and tell you that my numbers are lower than yours, or my numbers are higher than you, and to just not give you all the information that you need. And you just have to do that. You have to be willing to work your butt off, prove that you are the person that people want to be like, but have a reason to do it. Kobe was great. He was always practicing. He was always shooting. He was always trying to make himself better. And so that's really what that is to me. It's do everything you can. You set that goal, you figure out what it is, and you do everything that you can to get better at that. no matter what. And then when someone comes up and they're in your corner and they want to help you and they want to do that, help them too. Make them better. Bring them up to your level. Teach them everything that you know so that they can be better.
We talked about this final point a little bit earlier on, but I just wanted to reiterate it. Some of the most hated people are the most successful in their industry.
That's 100% true. You look at these people, you know, one of the main reasons that I do what I do now is Gary Vaynerchuk, right? And you listen to people talk about him and how most people, you know, we got the hater math going on with Gary, right? And when you have 100 million followers or whatever Gary has, you're going to have way more people saying negative stuff, but the amount is like, you know, 100 million followers, 100 million people saying good stuff. He's probably got like 5,000 people who talk trash to him, right? And so he is hated. There are people who don't like him because they are jealous of what he does. And being successful is one of those things. You have that target on your back where people are going to look at you and they're going to say, what did that guy do to deserve what he got? And they only see the success part. They don't see the struggle that they went through. They don't see all the things that they had to do in order to be successful. They just see the success part. They don't know that Gary Vee was an immigrant, you know. They don't know that he grew up in a family where his parents had to go to work every single day. He didn't have very many clothes. He didn't have the things that other people want. He had everything he needed. And we talked about needs and wants, but he didn't have everything that he wanted. So, but now you look at him, he's a multi-million-dollar man. He's got tons of people following. He's got tons of people who like him, but then he's also got those haters, and there are people who hate you no matter what, even when you're a success, even when you've crawled out of that. And there's people who don't see the big picture. They don't see what you did, and they think that it was just given to you.
The podcast is Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley. Wes, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the best place to find me is on Instagram. I am on all platforms, but my Instagram account has a link, or it's kind of like a link tree. It's called Podspout. You check it out, click on that link, and it'll show you my Facebook, my Instagram, everywhere else you want to follow me, wherever you are. And the big thing for me is that I want you to be able to listen or watch or do whatever you want. My show is a live show, kind of like this. So if you go to @wes.tankersley, I'll spell my last name. It's TANKERSLEY, and you can see it scrolling across the bottom there if you're watching. And then click on that Podspout link, show you wherever you can do it, wherever you want to listen to it, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. And then reach out, DM me. I'm open to talking no matter what. I'm trying to get into kind of, you know, some coaching, consulting, social media marketing, advertising. If you got a podcast and you want to get it off the ground and you want some help with it, love to help you.
You've been listening to Wes Tankersley on the Coach Ray Speaks podcast through Impactful Solutions Academy. We thank Wes for his time. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great evening.
Yeah, I've been on the road to riches, hitting every bump on every avenue. Hit the ceiling glass and I've been crashing through. Coach Ray, put me onto the place. Every episode play, got me ready for the game. Coach Ray Speaks. 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 Coach Ray Speaks.